And we're live now. Good evening to everyone. Welcome to my sports YouTube channel, CW Sports, when I do sports content about boxing, basketball, football, and other sports. And I also do interviews with athletes and sports related people. And, and my guest here is former world champion Maureen Shea, who is the first women's boxing world champion in my channel. And before we begin this, let me remind you that my guest here is a woman, is a lady, so I suggest that you manage yourself with respect because I'm not going to tolerate any disrespect towards her. Anyone who does it is going to be blocked.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
so let's start this channel. So, Maureen, welcome to my space. Welcome to my channel. A pleasure and good to have you here. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, and it's such an honor to be the first female world champion that you have on your growing channel.
Uh, now, thank you for accepting. The pleasure is mine. So anyway, let's start. Talk about a little about your life, your beginnings, where you grew up, and how do you start with the sport of boxing?
So I grew up in the Bronx, New York, and I didn't grow up with boxing. I grew up playing many sports, but never boxing. The first time that I encountered boxing, I was 15 or 16 years old, and it was when Mike Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear, and that was
Oh,
the first fight I ever saw, and I saw it by accident. I was at a friend's house, and his dad was having a fight party, and when it happened, there was a big uproar in the living room, and we all went in to see what happened, and that was the moment. So it was, and I struggled a lot emotionally growing up. I had a lot of anger, a lot of depression. I struggled a lot with my emotions and
oh,
verbalizing my emotions. I was very reactive as a kid, and I would really internalize a lot of the things too. So I connected with Mike Tyson's emotion in that fight. It wasn't the boxing that I liked. It was the
wow.
fact that he was like, I felt anger. I had anger too. I mean, not anger that I would want to bite somebody's ear, but I could relate to the frustration and the anger. So fast forward, I'm now 17 years old, and I found myself in an abusive relationship. And my
Wow.
boyfriend ended up he was doing steroids. I found out later on, and he was abusive. He had hit me, punched me in my face. I had 8 stitches above my eyebrow. I went through a lot, and a lot of people were like, "You," and I'm like, "That's the thing about of domestic violence." My mother never hit my father, never hit my mother. There was no violence in my family. My parents were married. My father passed away 4 years ago, so you
Wow.
know they were together for a very forever, and so I never saw that. But my struggle was internal, and my fight was inside. And he was my best friend, and he started verbally kind of breaking me down, and I started to look at myself, saying there was something wrong with me, and maybe if I lost weight or I was better, or so I started going to the gym, and to better myself for him. And I was 17, and I walked into the back, and there was a boxing ring. And I remembered that fight with Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. And I said, "Oh, I know what this is." And one of the coaches came up to me, Willie Soto, and he said, "Do you want to try?" Now, I'm half Mexican, half Irish. So when Willie asked, "Do you want to try?" I said, "Well, how am I going to connect with these men?" So I speak fluent Spanish. And I spoke to him in Spanish, and I said, "Yeah, I'd like to
Oh,
try." And he said, "How do you know Spanish?" And I said, "Well, I'm Mexican and Irish." And he said, "Oh, you're going to be a world champion." And honestly, I had no desire. I didn't even know competition. I didn't know anything about boxing. Nothing. All I knew was I was very lost in my soul, and I saw something, and I just felt. And I always say it's by the grace of God that I walk back there, because boxing literally saved my life.
wow. Can't believe what you're telling me. So you're a domestic violence survivor.
Survivor. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm about to
Yeah.
get emotional. So sorry that you had
Oh
to
no. But
go
you know
through that.
what though? Thank you. Thank you. But you know what? I look at my life now, and I look at what I've been able to do. I was able to come out of that, and I'm able to help others. So for me, it was a gift, and boxing gave me that ability to really, because boxing's so individualistic that I really had to focus on myself. And I loved boxing so much There was nothing, it was funny, during that time, there was nothing, I was like almost obsessed with him. Everything was about him. Everything had to be about him. And so when I found boxing, I loved boxing so much that I loved boxing more than I loved him.
Oh,
And I fell out of love with him and in love with boxing.
okay. And since you say that growing up you didn't watch boxing until you were a teenager, and when you start like watching the sport more, what fighters like do you like to watch?
Oh, when I start, so when I got into the sport, mind you, we couldn't watch the women. Christy Martin was just, she had just, it was her name, Layla Ali, because we're talking 1998 was when I started boxing. So, so for me, I didn't really have women that were out there that I could connect with and see and watch because women weren't televised. So I started to watch Fernando Vargas. I watched his
Okay.
fight with Felix Trinidad.
Wow.
I watched Arturo Gatti. I watched Oscar De La Hoya, obviously. I watched Roy Jones. I watched Bernard Hopkins. I would go back and watch the old fights. I would watch uh, Marvin Hagler. I would watch George Foreman, Pernell Whitaker. I started studying. See, I'm a student. I'm not just a student of life, I'm a student of the sport. So I would study these fighters and I would just learn because, when I started boxing, there was no women in the gyms. So it wasn't common. And I didn't fit whatever idea people thought of a woman boxer. I don't have tattoos. I didn't look tough. I didn't have the muscles, but I have a fight inside of me and I wanted it, and I had a discipline and I had a resilience and I had a drive and a determination to be better every day. And so when I started to when I had to find coaches because after I trained with Willie, I ended up having to I went to another gym and I had coaches close doors in my face and tell me I don't look like a fighter. I got that so much in my life. You don't look like a fighter. I
Wow.
used to get mad because I was like, what does that mean? Because they didn't know the fight I had inside. And this was before Ronda Rousey, before everything going on now. So it was a fight. It was literally a fight for me to just be taken seriously in the sport. But I did study a lot of the male fighters, and I got to say, a lot of my style comes from those fighters. I Miguel Cotto is another one, and I got to fight on Miguel Cotto's undercard. I fought on Evander Holyfield's undercard.
Wow.
Yeah, I fought on Shane Mosley's undercard. I've done a lot of a lot of big things. So It's been awesome.
Wow. So you were not taking that seriously, like to box as a fighter, and how hard, and why not ask this? How hard and how frustrating was that for you?
Um, Not being taken seriously, I was frustrated and I would get mad, but then I realized I was wasting my energy, so I would just show up and work, and I proved to people that I belonged there by my work ethic and my discipline and my ability to learn and grow, because I just became that annoying fighter that kept showing up every day, and they're like, "Is she gonna quit?" I mean, they put me in the ring with a girl that almost broke my jaw. They put me in the ring
Wow.
with a girl who had experience. I had no experience, and I knew one, two, slip, slip. That's all I knew. And it was the first time I sparred with a female, and I got hit in the face. And it's funny because Mike Tyson said everyone has a plan till they get punched in the mouth, and it's true because after that happened, I stopped the sparring, and I said, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this, and I went home and I thought about it, and I cried because I was frustrated, and I came back the next day, and I never stopped.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your amateur career. If you had an amateur career, or how many amateur fights you had?
I only had 12. I had 12 amateur fights over 4 years because it was hard to get fights. I paid my way. Remember, women weren't in the Olympics, so I paid my way to nationals. I came out of pocket to pay to go to. I fought in Colorado Springs, and I fought what else did I fought Chicago, and all of that I paid my own way, and I only had 12 fights.
Wow. So, and when you went to that state tournament in Colorado, that was your first time visiting that state, in that state?
Colorado. No, I'd been to Colorado before, I think when I was younger. But it wasn't really like a vacation. Like I went there and it was just training. I loved it. I loved it. I loved going there with a purpose. My second fight, I fought a national champion at nationals. My second fight. There was no open and novice for women. So I had to fly. So I won my first fight. My second fight, I flew to Chicago. It was national tournament because it's the only way I can get a fight, and I fought the national champion.
Wow.
I lost, but I fought my second fight against somebody that had way more experience than me, and I went the distance.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the nickname that you got, like the real $1 million baby. Where did it came from?
So, I trained in Gleason's gym with Hector Roca, and I trained with him for about 7 years. And in 2003, before Hillary Swank came to the gym to train with him,
Wow.
and he partnered me to spar with her, and we just started sparring a lot. And then I guess the media found out, and they started coming to the gym and asking me questions, interviewing me and stuff. And I was always very honest, like because if you ask me a question, I'm gonna tell you the truth. That's just who I am. So when they asked me why I started boxing, and I said, well, I was in an abusive relationship, and next thing it was like wildfire, and I became like a headline. I was in the newspapers.
Oh
I
wow.
was on in Sports Illustrated. I was in all these celebrity magazines. I was on True Hollywood Story, Access Hollywood, um 60 Minutes, CNN. I did everything. I didn't expect it. I was in college. You got to understand, my parents didn't know. They didn't know I was boxing in the beginning. And then when my dad found out, he said, well, in this house you have to work and go to school. You can't do all three. And I said, well, watch me. So I worked, I went to school, and I boxed. So I
Oh,
literally had no life. That's all I did because I wanted boxing so bad that I sacrificed a lot for it. And yeah, and then when that happened, I was still going to school, and I was still working, and I was still boxing.
oh wow. Can't believe that you sparred with the actress Hilary Swank, who I saw in a couple of movies, including the one that won the Oscar,
Yeah.
Million Dollar Baby. That I really love that movie. So, how was that experience to be able to help Hilary Swank train and prepare for a role like that? Because we know that I know that she's the main character, the Maggie Fitzgerald,
Yeah.
if I remember. And how was the experience of helping her spar? Probably trying to probably having the chance to know her, working with her. How what was that for
Oh, it
her?
was great. She's such a hard worker and such a genuine human being. She's a really good person and a really uh, hard worker. And she really devoted herself to that character. She gave a lot of herself. She would train. She took the train to the gym every day. She showed up. She worked just like any other fighter. Hector was a very tough trainer, and he doesn't take any shit from anybody. And he didn't treat her any differently. He's like, "Oh, you want to be a boxer? I'm going to teach you how to be a boxer." And she really worked very hard, and that's why I mean, not just her acting, but her abilities that she learned and acquired through the training really showed in the movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's very showing the movie, and it is showing that she learned. That she learned because we can see it in the movie.
You could
If
see it. Yeah, it wasn't like you can't the choreograph, but you could see it's. And she only trained for 6 months. She only had
wow,
6 months to learn and to gain weight. She put on like 26 pounds.
wow, wow, to learn all that in 6 months, wow, it's amazing. Wow, and you didn't manage to see any other actor who acted in that movie besides Hilary Swank in that gym, or
No, no, not in the gym. I did meet Craig Berko, who worked in Cinderella Man. He was training during the same
wow,
time. He played Max Bear. Yeah, Craig's a
oh,
great guy. What a another great human being. Hard worker, a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with him in the gym. Um, I'm trying to think who else. I mean, John Leguizamo would come in. He trained. We had a ton. I mean, 50 Cent came in. We had a lot of actors and more actors, I think, than actresses that would come into the gym. And and train and work out. The thing about boxing is everybody likes to be around fighters. It's a different atmosphere. It's almost like the Rocky experience. Everybody wants to be around a fighter, and every fighter has, a story. And, people get to know the person, and then they just really root for them. So it's an awesome sport.
Oh, yes, it is. Okay, now let's go. Now let's talk about your pro career. And you say that you fought on the undercard of Evander Holyfield. Do you remember what fight was, and how do you remember able to fight in an undercard of a match of a heavyweight legend and an overall legend like Holyfield?
So I am self promoted my whole career. I never had a promoter.
Oh,
My manager was actually the first boxing coach besides Willie that my manager took me to my first amateur fight. And then when I turned pro, he brought me to Hector Roca, and then he became my manager. So back in the amateur days, I was invited after Million Dollar Baby. I was invited to an event. It was the police department versus the fire department. And I sat at a table with a bunch of gentlemen, and one of the guys there was talking to me, and he was like, "Oh, do you box?" And I said, "Yeah, I box." Like, I was humble. I didn't say anything about Million Dollar Baby, and I was still struggling actually with my own personal issues, my own depression, and my emotional stuff. So, even though I helped Hillary and I did all that, I was still on my journey of survival. I was still on my journey of healing. Um, so I'm at this table, and I sat next to these guys, and one of them was like talking to me, and then they started announcing, like, at the fights they announce all the celebrities and the champions and the fighters that are in the crowd, and they announced everybody into the ring, and they didn't announce me. And I didn't know what was going on, so I just sat there and watched. And then they said, "Oh, we have a very special guest here tonight." And then they announced me in the ring by myself, and I was like, wow, like, that was very nice. And I got in the ring, and then when I was coming out, I was signing autographs and taking pictures. And the gentleman that I was sitting with, they were like, "Why didn't you tell us who you were?" And I was like, "I did. I told you my name is Maureen and I'm a boxer." But they were like, "But you worked with Hillary and you did this and you did that." And I'm like, "How do you tell people that?" You know what I mean? Like, I was young. I was like 23. I was very young, and that's not why I started boxing. I didn't start to box to be famous. I started boxing to heal.
right.
I was broken, and so I was still broken, and I was like, so anyway, long story short, he ended up calling Murad Muhammad, who was actually the first promoter that brought Manny Pacquiao over from the Philippines. Manny
Oh,
Pacquiao first worked with Murad Muhammad. Murad Muhammad worked with a lot of fighters, and he put me on the phone with Murad. And Murad said, "So I hear that you," because I was going to go pro, and he said, "Oh, I heard you're going to go pro." I said, "Yes." He goes, "Well, I'm going to put you on one of my cards." I said, "Okay." Fast forward from 2004 to 2006, I was on Evander Holyfield versus Fresno Kendo, and Murad Muhammad came through on his promise, and he put me on his card.
oh, wow.
I have a lot of really cool stories like that, because I don't believe in coincidences. I believe everything was done. There's design to everything. And for me, God is my higher power, and I believe that God had a plan for my life. And I just kind of stepped into the next thing, whatever it was. And for me, it was to be better. Every day I wanted to just be better, and that's just what I did. And I wanted to heal, and I wanted to feel better because I was struggling.
Oh, wow, but I think you have 100 stories to tell. They're all
Yeah.
great and they're worth hearing
Thank
and
you.
listening to.
Thank
So
you.
tell me, so how do you feel? What was it like to find the undercard of a fight of a fighter like Holyfield, who fought you, like you say, he fought Fresno Kendo in
Yeah.
that event, and you
Yeah.
fought in that undercard. So what was that experience for you?
Well, it was interesting. It was at the Alamo Dome in San
Wow.
Antonio, and it was huge. And I remember I fought a girl, it was her hometown. And I remember that they put me in a golf cart to get me to the ring walk. The place was so big that I got in the golf cart and I got to the ring walk, and then I had to walk out to the ring. And it was intense. It was very intense. And then I remember in the fight, it was a 6 rounder. It went the distance. And then in the last round, when the ref, the round was over, she threw a punch and she hit me after the bell. And because
Wow.
she was mad because I beat her, I frustrated her. And she's a tough girl. She's a very tough girl, bigger than me too. And then everybody in the crowd started booing. And then I put my hand up and everybody started singing New York. And I was fighting her. She was from San Antonio. And that was her hometown. And then everybody started chanting for the New Yorker because she hit me after the bell. It wasn't right. So it was it was awesome. And at the weigh-in, that's actually the fight that I got the nickname the real $1 million baby. At the weigh-in, that's how they announced me up to the scale. I didn't give myself that name. People don't know that. It was the weigh-in. It was the announcer that gave me that name.
Oh, okay. Very, very interesting. And now, you said also that you fought in the on the undercard of a Shane Mosley fight. Do you remember what fight was that?
Yeah, it was Mayorga 2. I was actually the co-feature. I was the co-main to Shane
Wow,
Mosley. Yeah.
wow, to
And that was at
Shane.
the Forum. That was at the Forum in California.
Wow. So you fought in the in the card of the mostly Mayorga rematch. You were that co-main event, and how what was it like for you? Because you went from fighting a six rounder in the undercard of Holyfield versus Okendo to all the way to become that co-main event of mostly versus Mayorga too. So that's a huge
Well,
process.
I went to so I fought on Holyfield's card first.
Okay,
Then I fought on Miguel Cotto's undercard
okay,
at the Garden. Then I mean I had other fights between that. But then I fought on the undercard and then I co-featured Shane Mosley in California. So that was in 2015, I think. So the Miguel Cotto, so the Holyfield was 2006. The Cotto card was 2008, and then the Mayorga card, I mean the Mosley card was 2015.
okay. And how was that experience for you to be able to be that in that co-feature line in a event like that?
Well, I felt like I belonged there. Like I earned it because I really earned I really learned on the job. That I didn't have an Olympic background because there was no Olympics for women. So I didn't have this amateur pedigree because it wasn't available. And so I turned pro after 12 fights and I literally learned how to fight on the job. I learned how to fight as a professional. Because in 12 fights you can't learn a lot. So I learned as a pro. And so it felt really good for me because I felt like each fight was a growing and a growth and a achievement for me. But the hard part for me was I was struggling so much with my own self-worth for so long that I didn't realize how much I deserved it and how hard I worked to earn that. I think by the time I fought in California, I did. But before that, for years, I just kept working and working. And I always felt like I had to prove myself. I always felt like I wasn't valued because I was a female boxer and we're the minority and we were an attraction and we weren't taken seriously. And so it took probably to that fight for me to feel like, no, you belong here. And I was already a two-time world champion by then.
Oh wow. Okay. And you said that you fought in the undercard of a Miguel Cotto fight. Do you remember what fight was that?
Michael Jenkins. He fought Michael Jenkins. I think it was the fight after Mayorga. When was Mayorga's fight? I feel like it was like a comeback fight for him. It was after that. I think it was after he had lost, I think. I'd have to look it up. But I think he had lost because Michael Jenkins was a little bit of I mean, he's a tough kid, but it was a bit of an easier opponent for Cotto. Um so that was yeah, that was and Matvey Korobov was on that card and who else was on that card? John Duddy was John Duddy on that card? No. Oh no, that wasn't that card. It was Matt no, me, Matt Bay. I forgot who else was on that card. But yeah, it was a great and then after that, this is a little known fact that people don't know. Before Christina Poncher was commentating for Top Rank, I was the first female boxer to commentate for Top Rank. I commentated
Wow.
for Top Rank pay per view, for um Chavez Jr. And he fought in Tijuana. I forgot who he fought against, an Argentinian kid, and it was live on pay per view. I commentated with Al Bernstein and Rich Murata, and I was 27 years old. And then Bob Arum asked me if I was going to quit boxing, and I said no because I think they wanted to hire me as a commentator, and I said no, I'm not going to quit boxing to do this. I want to do. Why can't I do both? But then you got to understand, I had promoters like Lou DiBella telling me and my parents, women's boxing isn't going to go anywhere. Tell her to give up. The girls today didn't really have to go through that. It's a lot different what women about like my time and before me what we had to go through. It's a lot different today. These young girls today have a ton of opportunity and it's wonderful. But women that came before them had to really fight to get recognized.
Yeah, I remember. Okay, I think the Argentinian dude that Chavez Jr. fought, I think was Luciano Cuello.
That's it. That's it. That's it. And I commentated that fight. Yep.
Yeah, and you mentioned Cotto versus Jennings. I think that was in 2009, if I'm not
Was
mistaken.
it 8? I think it was 8. I thought it was 8. It was
Uh,
8 or 9.
2008 because the year before Cotto lost to Margarito, and I
That's
remember.
right.
Yeah.
Margarito, not Mayorga. Yeah, Margarito, because that was the whole thing. And then they put him in with Michael Jenkins because they wanted to build up his self esteem again because he got beat up bad. That was because Margarito, they said he had the raps that were messed up.
Okay, now let's go to 2000. Okay, in 2009, in February 2009, you fought this boxer from Peru, world champion Kina Malpartida.
Yeah.
So, how do you remember that fight with Malpartida? What do you think that happened there?
So people don't know this. Again, more information. So Hector Roca was my coach during that time, and he went to Belgium with a male fighter. So I fought for my first world title by myself without my coach in my corner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I found out that he was leaving like 3 weeks before my fight. So it was messed up, and so I wasn't gonna lose the opportunity. So we took the fight. But that's not an excuse. I dropped her in the first round. I was winning the fight. I think it was the fourth round. My I blew my eardrum
Ooh.
in the fourth or fifth round. I blew my eardrum and I had no equilibrium, so I literally was fighting for 5 rounds with no equilibrium. And then when I went down, she hit me, I went down, I couldn't stand up anymore because I was fighting on muscle memory and will. I was injured. People don't know that because nobody asked. You got to understand, women, it didn't matter. They didn't care about us like they care about the men. If that fight happened today, that was a great fight. If that fight happened today and I had the opportunity to tell people I blew my eardrum and I wanted the rematch, it would happen. But the only reason that fight happened was because of me. Nobody knew who Kina was. They knew me. I got the opportunity. I spoke to Bob Arum. I pitched the fight to Bob Arum. I made all my opportunities happen. I spoke to Shane Mosley. That's why I got on his undercard. I spoke to Murad Muhammad. That's why I got on Holyfield's undercard. I had to do all my own work. Nobody helped me. My manager, but I did it. I had to do a lot of work. I didn't have some promoter, oh, you just have to focus on boxing. I was working, going to school, boxing. It was a lot different back then.
Oh, wow. Wow, amazing, amazing story. And before we continue talking, you said you were going to school, like to going to college. You were
Yep.
going to college, what career you were studying?
I was an English major. I went to Iona College in New Rochelle, New York, and I was an English major with a minor in speech communications.
Wow, very interesting career. You must have
Yeah.
enjoyed it because to major in English, it must have been like a hard. Besides a boxing career and going to college, that must have been like a little tough. It can be tough and hard. So how difficult it was for you to do all those things at the same time?
Well, I tell people, what do you want? If I want something, I find a way to make it happen. So I wanted boxing. And my father said, you live under our roof, you have to work and go to school. And I said, okay. So I worked and I went to school. I got an academic scholarship. And I remember when I was amateur fighting, when I was in college and I was an amateur, um, I would eat out of the trunk of my car. I would eat all cold
Wow.
food because I didn't have time to heat up my food. So I was eating salads and tuna and rice, and I was eating everything cold because I had to make weight and I wanted to eat. And I was eating yams in my classrooms. I had to ask my teachers, "Can I eat a yam in here?" It was I mean, people think it's crazy, but when you want something bad enough, you find out what you got to do to get it. And that's just what I did. I'm like, all right, this is what I have to do to get what I want, then I'm going to do it. And that's what I did. So it was hard. It was there were times where it was, but I wanted it, and I think I wanted the healing. It was the healing and what boxing was giving me as a woman, helping me. It was hard and it was healing. So it was almost like two things. It was hard because you always had to fight your way but I like to fight. I like to prove people wrong. I like when people looked at me and they said, "Oh, you don't look like a fighter." I said, "Okay, well, you should come watch me fight." And then they did, and they're like, "Wow, you can fight." And I'm like, "I know." Because the fight isn't out here, the fight's in here. And that's a hard fight. When you got somebody that's been fighting in here their whole life, that's a tough person that doesn't give up.
Yeah. Yes, I can understand. Okay, so let's go forward and I want to let's go to 2011 when you fought Diana Ayala for the World Featherweight Interim Championship. So how
Yes.
do you remember that fight with Ayala?
Oh, that was a good fight. It was in Mexico. I knew I had no. I mean, I didn't know anybody out there. I fought for the world title. I won it. Me and my coach, and I remember so it was just me and my coach out there, Joseph Janik, and he was like, "Listen, I need a second man in the corner," and I said, "Okay," and he said, "Well, the guy who's been driving us around, George. What do you think if we ask him to be in the corner?" And I said, "Okay." So the promoter had given us this guy to drive us to the gym and make sure that we had everything we needed. Hector Garcia was a promoter, very nice man. And so George worked in my corner. So he got to work a world title fight. And he was a huge boxing fan. And so I gave him the cornerman jacket and stuff, and he brought his whole family. It was nice. It was an awesome experience, to have him there. But that was a good fight. It was a tough fight. She was a good fighter. The judges' scorecards were a little off. It's politics. It's boxing. I saw the ref talking to the her coach after the fight. It was just weird stuff, and they were saying I won split decision. I beat her unanimously, but whatever. I won the fight.
Okay, so it was a world championship fight, even though it was the interim championship. We
Well,
can see
here's
it
the
was
thing. It wasn't an interim title fight when I first signed for it. It became one, which is
wow.
another thing. Yeah, it was wrong. It was a full title because the champion was pregnant and then she retired and they never brought me to full champion. So,
Oh,
yeah. So I got stuck with interim when the champion never came out of retire. She never came back after pregnancy, and they just, yeah, and then they offered me a fight on 2 weeks notice to fight for $1,000 less than what I fought for the title, and they wanted me to fight in Canada against the Canadian when I had the interim title, so I had no negotiation power, and I vacated the belt. I said, "Take your belt," kind of what Crawford did. Here you go, take your belt. I'm okay. Not that I have anything against the WBC, but that was just wrong.
okay, I can understand that. And when you became a world champion, what was that for you when you became a world
I
champion?
I, I had no connection to the belt. I would fight to win. I was still struggling with my own personal demons at that point where I felt like I wasn't worthy. I just fought fights to keep proving to myself that I was worthy of other things. So this is tough, and only maybe a psychiatrist could really understand this. But I had like, I want to say like maybe imposter syndrome, where I didn't think about the world titles. I wasn't your typical boxer because remember I got into boxing to heal because I was in an abusive relationship. I didn't become a boxer to be famous, to become a world champion. Nothing. I just said, "What's next? What's next?" And when they offered me this fight, it was another fight, title or no title. I fought every fight like it was for a world title. So for me to win the title, I mean, I was happy I won the fight. The title was just an accessory because I still was battling internally with my own demons.
Okay, Let's go forward to 2014 when you won the IFBA Super Bantamweight title against Angel Gladney. So how do you remember your fight with Gladney?
Oh, that was. I mean, I remember the fight. I dropped her. I think I stopped her in that fight. She was a, she came in overweight. I don't like when opponents come. I mean, I think she
No.
came to fight, but she didn't come. She came overweight, so she couldn't win the belt. I wanted. I would have preferred her to come on weight and done the right thing, been a professional. I've never not made weight as a professional. I never had a problem making weight or anything. So, hey, it was a good fight. I was happy. I was fighting in Oxnard, and Oxnard and Ventura became my home, my second home, and I had a great community, great support. A lot of my fights, the memories inside the ring are like whatever, but the memories that I have, the best memories are what happened outside the ring and who I had supporting me and the lives that I got to touch through my fights.
Okay, and let's go. Let's talk about another fight that it was like a unification fight with Julia and Luna.
Yeah.
So how do you remember that fight with Luna?
That was a good fight. I felt I won the fight. It was a close decision. I wanted the rematch. They wouldn't give me the rematch immediately. They wanted to wait 6 months. And then I took another fight, and then she got pregnant, and then I got injured. So I never got the rematch with her. I wanted to rematch her. I was going to wait the 6 months, but I wasn't going to sit around and do nothing for 6 months. So I took a fight, a stay busy fight, and then she got pregnant, and then I got injured.
Oh, okay, I understand. And okay, you fought after that. Okay, I can understand. You didn't want to wait a lot. And now let's talk a little bit about the fighting scene in women's boxing. So how do you see the state of boxing now?
No, I think it's I think MVP is doing some great things for women's boxing by providing them a platform. I still don't think you're seeing the best women fight the best women. I think there's women that are still not being given the opportunities that they've earned as well. But I think MVP sees it as marketing, which I understand they should. But I think sometimes they're not giving the public the better fights. I think there's other fighters out there like myself and Susie Ramadan, who is a world champion from Australia, that we're both 44 and 45. We're very active and we can still fight and definitely put on a show and win. We have tons of experience and we're both strong, healthy, and ready to fight. And it's unfortunate that we're not getting the opportunity. I'm really not sure why. But I think women's boxing overall is, it's headed in a good direction. I think it's a good thing, and I think the public is getting to learn more and more. It's nice, I guess, to sit from where I first started and see. But Susie and I had this conversation through text the other night. I don't think a lot of these women know what the women like us had to go through to get women's boxing recognized.
Okay, I can understand now, but I see that, but I understand what you're talking about now. But I see that women's boxing has grown a lot because, as you see, we had a lot of women that dare to fight the best, and we had several undisputed world champions in women's boxing because we had Katie Taylor, undisputed world champion in two weight classes. We had Clarissa Shields, undisputed world champion in three weight classes. In weight classes,
But
Alicia.
and listen, I'm gonna say something, and this is a controversy. I'm not gonna take anything away from Clarissa, but Clarissa is a big fish in a small pond. I'm not taking anything away from her, but her opposition, the fight that she won the heavyweight world title, that woman had 5 fights. That woman did not belong in the ring with Clarissa Shields. It's not Clarissa's fault, it just is what it is. But the girl she fought is nowhere near Clarissa's caliber. So I'm glad she's fighting Franchon Cruz again. I love Franchon. I think Franchon gives her a hell of a fight because their first fight, Franchon took it on 2 weeks' notice. That was Clarissa's pro debut. And I think both fighters have grown tremendously. So now I think she's fighting a legitimate opponent. But I think that heavyweight girl she fought, that girl was not any. I mean, I'm just being honest. I mean, you can't. I mean, it's not Clarissa's fault. Who else is she going to fight? If that's all that's there, that's who she's got to fight.
Yes, I think I saw the fight and I can understand it. But anyway, as I said, we have Shields undisputed world champion in three weight classes. We also have Amanda Serrano at featherweight. We had also uh, I don't remember exactly the fighter who's undisputed world champion bantamweight. I don't remember. But anyway, we had another couple of undisputed world champions in women's boxing, and I see that not only we have uh, uh, great fighters in the pro levels, we also see we have there's a lot of great fighters in the amateur levels. So we have
Yeah, they're
more
coming up.
girls.
They're getting
Yep.
opportunities. Yeah, it's great. The women are getting more opportunities. Women weren't in the Olympics, till 2012. So, or 13, 12 or 13. I mean, I turned pro in 2005. So there was no opportunities for women that came before to go into the Olympics. So, now there's an Olympics for these women to have the opportunity to grow and to achieve bigger things. And their marketing. That's what helps. That helps the Olympians, they got opportunity.
Yes, yes, I understand, and you're right. And as a fighter and as a woman who has a chance to witness all this growth in women's boxing, who who has this chance of witnessing this growth in women's boxing and how women's boxing is still growing. How do you feel about it?
No, I think it's great. I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. I wish I could get the opportunities that I've also worked for, and that I've also, I had I kind of got blocked by Matchroom to fight Ellie Scottney. There was a lot of back and forth with things, and I signed a contract to fight her, and then next thing I know, she's fighting Shanika Johnson, and I get dropped from the rankings. Like, there's a lot of other stuff. You got to understand, like, from my position, I'm happy to see women's boxing's growth, but I can't help but to sit back and say, well, I'm still here, and I've been active, and I've been fighting on my own with no promoter, pushing myself, and I'm still not getting the opportunities that I've earned. So that's hard. And it's not just me, it's myself. There was a point where Tiara Brown was being blocked. I'm glad she fought Sky Nicholson because she deserved that fight. Sky Nicholson was calling me out. And I said to Sky Nicholson, no, you should fight Tiara Brown. Like that's not right. I'm not going to fight somebody where somebody else deserves that opportunity. That's not right. And so Tiara Brown fought her, and Tiara Brown beat her, and I knew she would, and I'm glad that she did because that's something that's, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not right when you get these girls calling out smaller weight classes, girls that aren't ranked in their weight classes, but then, when it comes to fighting girls that could possibly beat them or challenge them or whatever, it's crickets. It's funny, but it's the same way with the men's. Everybody goes through it. It's the politics.
Yeah, okay. Yes, I can. Yes, I can understand that. Okay, let me ask you something. Is there any fighter that you like to watch today?
Female?
Yes, you can say female or and male boxing at the same time. Either one.
Um, I like Isaac Cruz. I like watching him fight. Um, the females, I still see a lot of growth with these girls. I liked I mean there's girls. Hannah Gabriels was probably one of my favorite female fighters. And
Okay.
I think she gave Clarissa Shields a run for her money, and now you don't see Hannah Gabriels fighting. She was one of my favorite female fighters. Like, I loved her style. See, like, I can appreciate Katie Taylor or Amanda Serrano, but Hannah Gabriels had a style. I'm a defensive fighter. She had movement and athleticism that I admired. And I'm like, I love that. I love watching Franchon fight because Franchon don't give a shit. Franchon goes in, she's all heart, all, Shadesha Green. I know Shadesha. I trained with Shadesha a long time ago. She trains with one of my coaches that I worked with, Terrific Gist. I see that she's coming up, and she beat the girl that she beat her last fight to win the world title. I forgot her name. But I forgot who had lost to that girl. Anyway, it's yeah. I mean, those girls I like to fight. I like to watch. You know, when I can. Watch the fights. I love watching Tiara. I enjoyed watching Tiara's fight, Tiara Brown. Um, I commentated Susie Ramadan. She made a comeback fight 2 years ago. She's unfortunately not getting the opportunities that she deserves. I was a big fan of Susie Ramadan when I was coming up too. She was pro during the times that I was pro. But this thing with social media, it was a different time back then. If we had social media as big as it is now back then, and the women like myself and Susie and these other fighters had the opportunity, I think it would have been a little different. But I think it's great. I love to see, because you gotta understand something. Olympic style boxers don't always make the best pros. I mean, look what happened to Lomachenko. Lomachenko is one of my favorite fighters. I love Lomachenko. Lomachenko, Arturo Gatti, Mickey Ward, but Lomachenko lost his first fight. Because he didn't have the experience. It's a different game. Amateurs and pros is a different game.
Right.
So when the girls first came out, I'm like, it's very in and out, in and out, in and out. I'm like, there's really no style. So it's nice to see the girls developing their styles now. It takes time. I have over 35 fights. What am I, 33 and 3, 33, 34, 35, 39 fights. It took time to develop my style. You're not just going to develop a style overnight.
Yes, I understand. So you think that it's so in some way or another, like social media, like help in a growth
Oh,
of.
absolutely. Absolutely, it does. Yeah, it helped a lot. Yeah, it definitely did because it allowed these females to kind of push themselves, you know?
Okay, is there anything about the sport of boxing today that you don't like?
Yeah, the politics. But that's part of it. That's part of the sport. It's a dirty sport, no matter what. I don't care who you are. It's a dirty sport, and it's unfortunate. I mean, I don't I love the sport. I don't love the business. The business is tough. The business has given me a lot. It's done a lot for me, but there's also still parts of it that I think are. But listen, for me personally, like I always march to the beat of my own drummer. I always go where the path may lead. Do not go where the path. Do not go where the path may lead. Go where there is no path and leave a trail. I've always made my own way, and I'll continue to make my own way. And I tell young girls too. I know what looks good, but just know that that's not everybody's road doesn't look the same. Your Everybody's road is different. So just don't fall off your road. Follow your road. That's my best advice that I can give young and upcoming fighters.
Okay, and do you know when you're fighting again? When is going to be your next fight?
2026 I'll fight again. Hopefully for a title. I mean, we're still trying to like, get things going. So we'll see what happens. I mean, listen, I'm always in shape. I mean, I'm always in shape. I don't. I make weight. I don't have a problem making weight. I fight at 118 pounds now. I was fighting at 122. I walk around at 125. I'm always in shape. I stay active, and I'm not staying in shape to stay ready. I stay in shape because that's my lifestyle. I love to work out. I worked out this morning. I did a Pilates class this morning. Then I walked 2 miles on the beach. Tomorrow I got another Pilates class. I have my whole week already planned. I'm an athlete for life. I'm a forever athlete. So, I love, discovering new things that my body can do and pushing my body to its limits, but also recovering and enjoying the fruits of my labor.
Okay,
But
that's
you'll
good to
you'll see
see.
me in 2026.
Okay, we'll see. Okay, so tell me, what do you think that it should happen so women's boxing can grow more support from the fans, support from from
I,
other
I think it
fighters?
is. I think it is happening. I think what MVP is doing is great. I mean, look, what happened? Matchroom was all the females were at Matchroom. Then Matchroom dumped all the females. Then all the females were with DeBella. DeBella dumped all the females. So like MVP is the only one that's creating a platform for women that sees the vision. Like, how do all these other promoters not get it, or do they not want to get it, or do they want women to be? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think it's in the right direction. I just think we need more promoters like MVP to give women the opportunity.
Uh, yes, I can understand that they deserve that chance, they deserve the opportunity, and and I personally think that the girls can fight 3 minute rounds. Do you think the same thing?
I mean, it's not that we can't. I think that we can, but I don't know. Like, is it is it gonna make? I don't know. Like, I don't feel like I want to be like a man. Like, I don't care. I can fight like 3 minute rounds, but I think 2 minute rounds are action packed. I think they're exciting. You don't see a boring women's fight. You see boring men's fights all the time. So I think there's a positive to the 2 minute rounds. I don't think I'm not like against the 2 minute rounds. I think people are making it like that's the only way women are going to be equal to men. But why do we want to be equal to men? We're women. Look at tennis. They're different, the men and the women. And women tennis is very successful. So I don't understand what the comparison. I mean, I know a lot of people disagree with that and they're like, "Oh, women aren't going to get paid until they fight 3 minute rounds." Amanda Serrano fought 3 minute rounds and it wasn't exciting. So, and she didn't get any stoppages. So, I don't know. I feel, and I mean, if that's what she was pushing for, I just think that it is more wear and tear on us. And I think when we fight 2 minute rounds, we can fight more often during the year. Because if you're fighting 3 minute rounds, it's a lot of wear and tear. And we're going to need more of a break, just like the men get the breaks. If a woman's fighting, 10 3 minute rounds, you're going to need some rest after that. But if you fight 2 minute rounds, you can fight every 4 months, every 3 months if you're fighting championship fights. 10 2 minute rounds, you could fight what, 3 6 9, you could fight 4 times a year. So I
Yeah.
think there's benefits to it, but I think it's all about perspective.
Yes, I can understand that. Well, since you mentioned like mental health, since you mentioned mental health, how overlooked do you think that mental health is overlooked in the sport of boxing
Oh, it's
or in other
extremely
sports?
overlooked. I mean, I think that it's looked at more now, but I mean, fighters for so long I feel battled with it and I didn't talk about it. I have lapses in my career because I was on antidepressants. I was on mood stabilizers. But I didn't talk about it. Nobody knew about it. But then you had like the Danny Garcias that came out talking about it. Ryan Garcia came out talking about his mental health. I think it's really important. That it's a factor. It's a fact. But I mean, and then you look at some fighters like drug addiction, alcoholism, suicide, you know, especially after retirement. A lot of these fighters don't know what to do after retirement. It's partial the fighter's responsibility to take care of their mental health, but they have to know how to take care of their mental health. And I think that therapy is extremely important. Talking to somebody that you can trust and feeling vulnerable. It's hard for any fighter, male or female, to be vulnerable. We don't like to be vulnerable. We don't like to sit back and be like, oh, I mean, I'm telling you all the things that I went through, but when I was going through them, it wasn't easy to talk about. Nobody knew that I was having like imposter syndrome. Nobody knew that I didn't think I deserved anything that was happening to me because I was in the fight. But I had therapists. And I think that, you know, I've really taken care of my mental health and I continue to. There was a time with boxing too. I'll stay out of the gym. If I don't feel like being in that gym, I won't be in the gym. I'll do other things because sometimes boxing isn't good for my mental health because of what comes with boxing, the business. And the business isn't good for my mental health. So sometimes I have to take a break from it, and that's okay. But then I come back when I want to. It's my choice.
Okay, Maureen, before we finish, is there any message that you want to send to your followers and to upcoming female fighters?
I think for all fighters, young fighters coming up, run your race. Don't look at the person next to you. Run your race because everybody, like I said, everybody's journey looks different. And find what's different about you. Don't try to be like anybody else. Find your own identity. Find your own style. Study other fighters, males and females. See what you like. Try it in the gym. Create. Be an artist. Boxers are artists. I always looked at myself as an artist. And
Um,
I create when I fight. And it's the same thing. So that's probably the best thing. Just don't ever stop learning, don't ever stop growing. And when I say, study other fighters, it's not like you're copying their style, but you're taking what you like and developing your own. And just really and staying true to yourself. I think finding your truth, owning your truth, and being true to yourself. Don't let anybody. convince you otherwise. You are who you are, and you learn, you grow, you make mistakes, you have setbacks, and then you just keep going forward. But definitely, recognize and be accountable. Be accountable for your mistakes, but grow from them.
Okay, we can finish it here. So, Marina, thank you for accepting the invitation to my channel. Thank you for being here. It was great listening to your story, and I had a great time hearing your story, man.
Oh, thank you.
I'm about to get emotional because some part of the story were emotional, but I like hearing you. Well, the best of luck of
Thank
your
you.
career, and it was
Thank you.
so great to have you and talk to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, follow me so you see more sports content and interviews with more athletes, including great world champions like Maureen Shea. And if for all the ladies, for the sports ladies in sports, if you want to, you want your story to be listened, if you want a space so you can tell your story, this space is for you. Okay. Anyway,
Thank you. Have a good
bye,
night.
Maureen.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you.
Take care.
Bye.
God bless.